You are Locked On Warriors POSTCAST, part of Locked On Sports Bay Area, on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Yo, what's up everyone, and welcome back to the Locked On Warriors POSTCAST. I am your host, Eric Engel, aka Triple E. You may know me from the Murph and Mac Show, formerly on KMBR. And tonight, the Warriors have played in more clutch games in the NBA than any other team this season. And why would tonight be any different? After failing to close out the Clippers last night, Klay Thompson comes up big for the Warriors, and they seal the deal against the Utah Jazz 140-137. A key battle for playoff positioning heading into the All-Star break. Klay came off the bench for the first time since his rookie season. That's 727 consecutive starts. That's a lot of consecutive starts, but it didn't stop him from opening up the faucet and splashing in a game-high 35 points and 7 threes. They almost gave it away at the end there. We got to talk about why the Warriors are struggling so much to close out these games, and we will break it all down. But first, I want to thank all of you for watching us on the Locked On Sports Bay Area YouTube channel. Please hit that subscribe button. Also, thank you for listening on the Locked On Warriors podcast feed. Make sure to check out the Locked On Warriors daily show for more in-depth coverage. Cyrus does a great job. Wow, this game had all of it. The Jazz had 2 shots at the end to one to win from Markkanen in the corner, and then Sexton in the other corner to tie. Wide open look from Sexton there. That would have just been a dagger. He did lead the Jazz in scoring, but he wasn't the guy who was hot from deep for the Jazz tonight. That would be Keyonte George, who tied a rookie record with 9 3-pointers in the game tonight. I believe he finished with 9. But just from the jump, Keyonte was just pouring him in. He was the only reason that the Jazz did not, kind of fade away early on in this one. In the first half, in the first quarter, really in the first quarter, he was big. He had 15 points, all from beyond the arc, and just absolutely giving the Warriors work. A lot of tough shots, quick shots, catch and shoot. You could tell he was feeling it from the jump. And Steph even kind of gave him a look after he hit kind of a deep, quick catch and release 3. And Steph gave him a look like, who the heck is this guy? So Keyonte George, great night. He will be in the Rising Stars Challenge along with AirPods. Brandon Podziemski, you're one of your favorite Warriors rookies. I mean, TJD might be your favorite one. Pods is my favorite Warriors rookie this year. He has been phenomenal. We've talked about him extensively on the podcast. Not a super huge night from Podziemski. Tonight was all Klay Thompson's night. And Draymond Green, too. I mean, we knew how big this game was for the Warriors when we saw Steph, Klay, and Draymond all playing on the back end of a back-to-back, the final game before the All-Star break. That alone tells you how big this matchup was. And thank goodness the Warriors held on to this one, because if they did not, oh man, this would be a disaster of a loss. I mean, no excuse to give up fourth quarter leads the way they've been giving it up, especially when they seem to play lockdown defense for pretty much the rest of the game. Tonight, a little bit different. Warriors gave up a season-high number of 3-pointers to the Jazz, and it felt like from the beginning the Jazz just couldn't miss. They hit 22 3-pointers tonight, so that just way too many shots from beyond the arc for a team who does not get a lot of their points that way. The Jazz are built to score buckets in the paint, and the Warriors actually outscored them in the paint. But the story tonight, the Utah Jazz absolutely capitalizing on turnovers, and the Warriors not being able to find a rhythm in the fourth quarter and put teams away. This trend continues, and it's troubling as this team looks to make a playoff push after the All-Star break. And you start to think about reasons for that, and it's we talked about it last night a little bit. Tired legs. This has been a grueling stretch of the season for the Warriors. If you were watching the game, you saw that graphic come up towards the end about the Warriors' travel. 15 days, 9 games, 7 cities, 8 flights, 7,200 miles. That is a lot. That's a lot of frequent flyer miles. Hope the guys can get out and enjoy some of those. Use them up on that All-Star break. Klay Klay probably going to get out there on the boat. Maybe heard he might be doing some golfing over the All-Star break. Always fun to see what the guys are up to when they're away from the court. But tonight on the court, Klay Thompson, 35 points, 7 3-pointers. And there was a stretch in the third quarter, man, where he looked like vintage Klay Thompson. He was scorching hot from deep, and he was calling his own number. You could tell the way he was coming off screens, the way that he was tightly curling around them. You knew he was looking to get his shot up, and he was looking to score. He got to the line a couple times. He had a nice left-handed layup while Collins was dragging him from behind, had him kind of hooked on his right arm. Didn't matter. Klay used the offhand, got the layup, and the and one. Vintage night from Klay. Draymond also looked really, really good tonight. Really impressive showing after not a great game from him last night against the Clippers. Tonight, Draymond scores 23 on 9 of 14 shooting, even drops in 3 3-pointers. So that was really good to see. 4 steals and 2 blocks as well for Draymond, 5 assists, 5 rebounds. So a little bit of a do-it-all night from Draymond, just a vintage performance. But the starter who didn't really show up as much as you would expect him to is Steph, and Steph's entitled to a lower scoring output. He doesn't have to score 40 a night for them to win. And tonight he only scored 16, but the Warriors did it in a lot of other ways. His Splash Brother counterpart, Klay Thompson, just having a night. But the one guy who didn't really step up tonight that kind of worried me was John Kuminga. And we'll get into this a little bit more on the other side, but Warriors are going to need Kuminga to continue to play at a high level when it's just not there for the other guys. When Steph's not having a big scoring burst, they need to be able to run that offense through Kuminga. And we'll get into that a little bit more later on. But first, we got to talk more about Klay and how he was just lighting it up tonight, what he was doing. He was really doing it all. He was, as you heard, seven threes, getting it done from deep, but Klay was also working inside. He was using the mid-range game, and he came off the bench tonight, and it was really good to see after, those final minutes against the Clippers last night. Klay's not in the closing rotation. And then Kerr puts him in right at the last minute when the game starts to slip away. Warriors kind of have like one last opportunity to make a final push, and Klay commits a very, very, very bad, uncharacteristically just not smart foul at the end of that game, and that alone didn't lead to the loss, but it definitely contributed and was in a key moment of that game. So you don't like to see that from a veteran like Klay Thompson. You heard the comments, earlier this season about him not wanting to come off the bench, about him not wanting to, it was hard for him to not be in closing lineups, things like that. And tonight it was really a positive sign to see Klay embrace coming off the bench. You heard at the halftime interview, he even told the guys he had fresh legs, and he credited coming off the bench for those fresh legs. So not a bad thing when on a night when it seemed like the legs just weren't there for the rest of the Warriors starters, especially John Kuminga and Steph too. He just didn't look like he had it tonight the way he does most nights out there. But the way that Klay was able to embrace this role and not just kind of mope and sit on the bench and pout about it is a very positive sign. He's talked about taking that Ray Allen role with the Heat, embracing coming off the bench and being that lockdown 3-point shooter. And you saw tonight what he can still do. Klay just erupted in last night, not a great game. Game before that, he had another scoring outburst. And these scoring outbursts are not, Klay's not past this point in his career where he's just not going to have these games anymore. He will continue to have these big games, and it's disrespectful to think that just because a guy like Klay Thompson is going to go to the bench, he's not going to have a meaningful impact on the game. We've seen six men all across the NBA have huge impacts on teams year in, year out, and Klay is no different. And he, at this point in his career, he needs as fresh of legs as he can get. And if him coming off the bench means he's got fresh legs and he's going to give the Dubs 35 points and just be an absolute monster in the third quarter, I'll take it. I'll take that every single night. I mean, when you have a guy like Brandon Podziemski, he's gonna need to be in the starting lineup. He's gonna force his way into the starting lineup. Same with John Kuminga, and you have some of these younger guys just forcing their ways into the starting lineup with the way they've been playing, and it's not a bad thing by any stretch of the imagination. This is a good problem for the Warriors to have. If these rookies never developed and Klay continued to just hold that starting spot locked down, that's a bad sign for your rookie development, So tonight, a lot of issues with the Warriors defense in the fourth quarter. We'll have to get into that a little bit more on the other side, as well as John Kuminga. Where was he tonight, and why wasn't he leading the charge in the non-Steph minutes the way he normally does? He had Klay bailing him out tonight, and that was huge for the Warriors. But where in the world is Jonathan Kuminga? Disappeared in the second half last night and is disappearing again tonight. So we'll be right back. We'll get into a little bit more of this on the other side. I am your host, Eric Engel. You're listening to the Locked On Warriors postcast on the Locked On Sports Bay Area channel, and we will be right back. Did you know that even if you have a 401k for retirement, you can still have an IRA? Robinhood has the only IRA that gives you a 3% boost on every dollar you contribute when you subscribe to Robinhood Gold. But get this, now through April 13th, Robinhood is even boosting every single dollar you transfer in from other retirement accounts with a 3% match. That's right, no cap on the 3% match. Robinhood Gold gets you the most for your retirement thanks to their IRA with a 3% match. This offer is good through April 30th. Get started at robinhood.com/boost. Subscription fees apply. And now for some legal info. Claim as of Q1 2024, validated by Radius Global Market Research. Welcome back to the Locked On Warriors postcast. I am your host, Eric Engel, and we got to talk about John Kuminga's disappearance tonight and why the Warriors are just kind of disappearing in the fourth quarter. And these issues are actually one and the same. John Kuminga, his legs disappearing tonight, him not getting to the line, not being aggressive, is the exact reason why the Warriors are having troubles down the stretch. We know Steph has the start to the fourth on the bench. This has been the same thing time in and time out. It's a tale as old as time. Steph Curry on the bench to start the fourth to get his usual rest. And they need to figure out a way to stay competitive when Curry is not in the game and have some momentum so that when Steph comes in, it's not just Steph stepping into the game when the momentum is just rolling for, in this case, for the Jazz tonight. And it's just Steph himself trying to stop this massive boulder falling down the hill. And he needs some help, man. He needs some help. And John Kuminga needs to be that guy. And the way that the Warriors can kind of stop these runs that teams are making on him in the fourth, aside from continuing to play good defense, but when the defense just isn't there, when the legs aren't there, they got to get to the free throw line, man. And they've been we know this Warriors team is not going to be the type of team to shoot more free throws night in and night out than their opponent. That's not how they win games. That is not how they've won games in the Steph Curry era. That's just not who they are. That's fine. But the free throws need to come at specific points in the game that are strategic to the Warriors. And what I mean by that is when other teams are going on these big runs and pouring things on, they need to be able to slow the game down, get to the line, get some sure buckets, and stop the other guys from running up and down in transition. The Utah Jazz are not a good transition team. We saw the Warriors look to attack them in transition a couple nights ago, and we definitely did not see that same game plan tonight. I don't think the Warriors had the legs to attack the Jazz in that same fashion that they did earlier this week, but it doesn't excuse the legs completely disappearing in the fourth quarter. They got to find a way to play solid defense down the stretch, and in a way to kind of get those legs back is slowing the game down, getting to that free throw line. And John Kuminga is the Warriors' best chance at doing that. He needs to continue to look to get to the line, look to drive to the rim. You saw a couple nice plays tonight. He had a big alley-oop there in the fourth quarter, which was huge for the Warriors. And that was good to see. But other than that, I mean, Kuminga was essentially not really a big factor for the Warriors offensively. in the fourth quarter. And we've seen that multiple nights in a row now. And yes, he's young. Yes, he's younger than a lot of rookies in this league. So it's plenty of time for Kuminga to develop, but he's got to be more aggressive, even if he's not making shots. I just need him to drive that lane and try and get to that hoop with authority like he does earlier in the game. And this will help the Warriors down the stretch. I mean, we saw tonight again, they're just letting guys get to the line, getting open shots. Rotation isn't as strong. It's not as crisp defensively. And other teams, if they can make those threes in the fourth, they have a chance of coming back against the Warriors. And, this is kind of what we're talking about last night. If you can hold off a team like the Utah Jazz, that's great. This is a team that the Warriors should beat. This is a team that they should be able to ward off down the stretch. And they can make some mistakes. They can have some turnovers. There's a big theme in tonight's game was the Jazz capitalizing on Warriors turnovers. I believe they outscored they more than like doubled or tripled the Warriors fast break points off of turnovers. Points off of turnovers, absolutely massive for the Jazz tonight. It just not good showing. It's sloppy basketball. Fitz said during the broadcast tonight, right on cue, right before the Jazz made a big run, he said, you can't fall in love with the cotton candy offense. And that struck me because that's kind of that's exactly what the Warriors have been doing in these losses, in these games this season. They've played more crunch time games than any other team in the NBA this season. And they seem to kind of just open up these big leads and then fall in love with making the flashy play, taking the deep three. You saw in the fourth quarter there, just a bad cross-court pass on an easy transition play where two Jazz defenders fell down running back on defense. And you had a 4-on-3, could have had a 5-on-3, and you just make a sloppy pass from the top of the key all the way across into the corner. And you don't need to do that in that situation, but they're out there freewheeling in these scenarios. And I get it. It's a double-edged sword with this offense because you want them to be free and flowing like water, but you don't want them to be kind of baited into making these mistakes. And when they start to get a little bit of space between them and their opponents, they seem to get a little comfortable and start to do some of this crap, man. And it's just not good basketball. They need to continue to play solid basketball. And one person that's going to help with that is Chris Paul when he comes back. We keep talking about it. And I think Chris Paul's really going to give this team a lift. That second unit needs a captain defensively, just cerebrally, to keep them locked in, to keep everybody accountable and make sure that those just boneheaded, senseless passes and lackadaisical rotations on defense just don't happen. The Warriors turning the ball over way too much and not getting back down the court on defense, that's going to hurt you every single time. And when you couple that with sloppy rotations and not closing out on three-point shooters at the ends of games, it allows people to come back in. And again, the way that they can thwart that is by getting to the free throw line. If you're not going to play good defense, if they're going to continue to give up these plays defensively, which is a bad sign and will come back to bite them in the playoffs if they don't remedy that. But the way to fix that and kind of slow that down is shoot more free throws. And night in and night out, there's a disparity. Tonight, it's not nearly as big as it was last night. The Jazz made 29 free throws and the Warriors made 22. Jazz took 32 and the Warriors took 28. So pretty close there by the end of the game. But again, it's the timing of these things that the Warriors need to be better about controlling the tempo of the game. And it feels like they're just letting their opponent dictate how things go at the ends of games and how the pace, the intensity. It doesn't feel like the Warriors are commanding things the way that this team usually does. And they're going to need to do that if they're going to be successful in the postseason this year. If they're going to hope to get out of the play-in, it's going to be a tough uphill climb. So where is John Kuminga? We need him back. Hopefully this is just him being kind of tired because of the road trip, the legs might the minutes, he's not used to this much usage. Maybe some of this is catching up with him. So All-Star breaks at a great time. Got to get rested, got to get healthy. Hopefully they get Chris Paul back not too soon after they come back from the break. And again, we got to just reset for a minute. Klay Thompson, amazing night tonight in absence of a brilliant Steph performance. After a hangover from a 40-point night, which he's allowed to have, by the way, Klay comes in, says, I'll take care of it, Steph. You take the night off, pours in 35 points and 7 threes off the bench, snaps a 727 consecutive start streak, first time coming off the bench since his rookie year in 2012. And just great signs to see Klay's bounce looking that fresh, to see his legs looking that fresh in the third quarter, him just looking for his own shot. It was excellent to see this type of game from Klay Thompson. Do not count Klay out. Don't count him out. And don't count out this Warriors team. We'll have to talk about more on the other side, what this team needs to do on the other side of the All-Star break to continue to make a push for the postseason, for that play-in spot, the 10th play-in spot, which they now hold a 2.5 game over the Jazz lead for. We'll be right back on the other side. We'll get more into the Warriors playoff push. I am your host, Eric Engel. We will be right back. Hungry Root is your partner in healthy living. It's the easiest way to get fresh, high-quality groceries and simple, healthy recipes delivered to your door. Take a fun, short quiz on Hungry Root, and Hungry Root will get to know your personal growth, health goals, and what you'd like to eat, the kitchen appliances you use, and so much more. Then they'll build you a personalized cart with all your grocery needs for the week and give you delicious recipe recommendations to put those groceries to good use. Hungry Root will recommend recipes and groceries based on your personal taste, but each order is fully customizable. Take their suggestions or choose anything you want. They got fresh produce, high-quality meat and seafood, pantry staples, healthy snacks, sweets, ready-to-eat meals, and much more. Everything from Hungry Root follows a simple standard. It's got to taste good, be quick to make, and contain whole, trusted ingredients. I love that. I don't like those processed things. You know what I mean? Saves hours, planning, shopping, and cooking. I love not wasting all of my time at the store, waiting in long lines, trying to find parking here in San Francisco. It's a mess. Hungry Root delivers the food you'll love and saves you hours. And right now, Hungry Root is offering Locked On Warriors POSTCAST listeners 40% off your first delivery and free veggies for life. That's pretty cool. Just go to hungryroot.com/lockedon to get 40% off your first delivery and get your free veggies. That's hungryroot.com/lockedon. Don't forget to use our link so they know we sent you. Welcome back to the Warriors Postcast on Locked On Sports Bay Area. I am your host, Eric Engel, and we got to get into what the Warriors got to do in this second half, air quotes, of the NBA season after the All-Star break to reach the play-in and to actually have some success in the postseason. And it's no secret. It's what we've seen from the Warriors during this last month or so of play. We need to see them play solid defense. That is where it starts and where it ends for the Warriors. We know that their shooting is going to bail them out of games occasionally, like it did tonight. Warriors defense was not up to snuff. I mean, they gave up almost 135 points to the Utah Jazz. They gave up over 70 points in the first half to the Jazz. I mean, just not good. A season high number of threes. This is not a good defensive night, but their shooting bails them out. They shoot 53% from the floor, 47% from three, set a season high with 42 assists, and it worked. It was good enough to win against the Utah Jazz. You know who that's not good enough to win against? The Oklahoma City Thunder, the Minnesota Timberwolves, any other team in the playoffs. We saw it last night, the Los Angeles Clippers, the Phoenix Suns. I mean, the Warriors beat the Suns during their win streak, but when they play how they played tonight, where they're wheeling and dealing, but leave something to be desired on the defensive end of the floor, this team is not going to be good enough to make a deep run in the playoffs if that's how they play. They are, They live and die by the three, yes, but how far this team gets in the playoffs will ultimately be determined by their defense. And we've talked a lot about on this podcast, on this postcast, in the past about how Draymond coming back has been massive for them, and Kuminga has taken a huge step defensively as well in the versatility that they have with those three wings that can essentially guard 1 through 5. I don't know if Wiggins can truly guard like a Rudy Gobert size 5 or a Yusef Nurkic type. Or Zubac, as we saw in the Clippers game last night. I don't know if they can really guard true 7-footers on those switches. I think Draymond might be the only guy of the bunch who can do that, but 1 through 4 is still pretty solid, So Wiggins, Kuminga, Draymond. You can pretty much switch anything out there on defense, and throw in a Brandon Podziemski too, and a GP2. If you have that lineup out there, which the Warriors don't too often, it's a pretty solid defensive lineup. But it's kind of the issue is you don't have one lineup that is just a defensive presence without a hole in it or two. And Klay hasn't been the best defensively, and Steph's been okay, but he's never been, a top defender in the NBA. But he's been pretty good. He holds his own. He's always towards the top in steals in the league, and he is, I think, a better than advertised defender. But I'm not gonna stretch and say that Steph is a top tier defender in the NBA or anything like that. So these holes will exist, and the Warriors need to continue to communicate, to switch, to rotate, and to have active hands in these passing lanes in order to push themselves further in the postseason. And that's what we saw during this win streak. And we keep saying it, but these are all things that are going to get better when Chris Paul comes back. And I think this is a big reason why the Warriors didn't make a move at the trade deadline, because you have all this young talent that is blossoming before our eyes. The John Kumingas, the Brandon Podziemskis, the Trayce Jackson Davises, who DJD didn't have his best game tonight. That's okay. We'll give him a pass. He's been a monster in the few minutes that he's played. And it's been good to see these guys develop, but this is essentially this team's on an upswing. They don't need to shake it up and make a trade. They're gonna get Chris Paul back, and these guys getting better is essentially like making a trade. It's essentially you're getting better one way or another, and I think shaking the chemistry up kind of would have slowed that down a little bit for these rookies. And I think Chris Paul is going to be huge at improving this team's defense across the board. It gives you another cerebral defender who knows exactly where to be, not only knows where he needs to be, but knows where everybody else on the court needs to be too. You see Draymond out there kind of, playing point guard or quarterback, really, like Pat Mahomes, directing traffic, telling people where to go. He directed Kuminga on a back cut that led right to a bucket earlier in this game. And those are some of the similar things Chris Paul's going to do. You see Draymond all the time pushing guys on a defensive rotation, pushing his own players like out to the 3-point line to get up on a guy. And Chris Paul does a lot of those same things. And Draymond can't play 48 minutes a night. You can't have that coach on the floor for 48 minutes a night. And that's what Chris Paul will bring this team. And that's what this team needs to do to stay competitive down the stretch in these fourth quarters and in the playoffs. This problem is not going to go away. We will be talking about this on future postcasts, and hopefully we won't be talking about it when the Warriors come back next week. We will have quite a long break. We'll be back next week after the All-Star break when the Warriors face should have had this prepared for you guys. They face the Lakers on the 22nd. That game is a national game on TNT and your local broadcast, 7:00 tip. That game is home at Chase Center, the start of a nice little 3-game homestand. And the Warriors are going to need it. It's a little bit of an extra rest after that long, grueling stretch. So the Warriors will look to get healthy, look to get rested. And Klay Thompson, I think he's going to enjoy this break thinking about those 35 points and those 7 splashes in from beyond the arc. Splash Brothers having a couple games for themselves coming into the break. Curry with 40+ last night. Klay with a vintage 35 tonight. And just super efficient too. Just super, super efficiency from Klay. One more note. Steve Kerr, 500 wins. Hats off, man. Love Steve Kerr. Love the vibe he's brought to the Warriors. So glad he came out of media to come coach that team. If they need anyone else to come out of media and come to coach the team, I am also available. I'm just kidding. So thanks for listening. I'm your host, Eric Engel. This has been the Locked On Warriors postcast on Locked On Sports Bay Area, and we will join you after the All-Star break against the Lakers at home from Chase Center. We won't be from Chase Center. We'll be from my apartment, but the Warriors will be at Chase Center versus the Lakers. February 22nd, 7 o'clock tip will come to you live right after the whistle. Thanks again for joining us on the Locked On Warriors postcast. I'm your host, Eric Engel. Peace.